This is the dish you cook for your boss when you're going for that raise, or for your date when you're really trying to impress them. A nice giant ribeye from Campo Grande.
And the worst thing that we could do is overcook it. We're gonna pat it dry with paper towels, and then we're going to heavily season it with salt. You know, the first step to any great steak is getting salt on it and really starting to pull that moisture out.
So when you're seasoning a steak, a good rule of thumb is put about 30% more salt on it than you typically would.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Ross. What happens is the salt starts to penetrate and fill those spaces that the water was taking up. And all we need to do now to let that salt penetrate is pop it in the fridge for about 3 hours.
This is some of my favorite cooking oil from the Algae Cooking Club.
Just about a tablespoon in the pan. Perfect, right there. And we're just gonna move it around to make sure that there's oil everywhere.
So now we're gonna go into the pan with the steak. And one of the things you always wanna remember when you're working with a hot pan, place the meat away from you so that if it splatters away.
And we got these nice weights. We're gonna go right on top, and that's gonna help evenly distribute the heat.
This particular weight from Chef's Press has venting on top of it to allow that moisture to come up so we're not steaming the steak. So less moisture, more flavor.
Exactly. We're gonna cook it on one side for about 2 to 3 minutes. We're gonna flip it, and then we're gonna rest it for the same amount of time we cooked it for. So what we're doing is we're stabilizing the internal temperature of the steak and cooking it slowly.
So basically that allows the temperature on the inside of the steak to catch up to the outside.
All right, it's been about 2 minutes now. And something you wanna remember is that these metal things, they get pretty hot. So you wanna make sure to take it off with a pair of tongs or tweezers. And we do a nice flip. And you can just see that beautiful color already on this steak. We go back on with the weight, and we're gonna, again, cook for another 3 minutes.
Beautiful.
All right, it's been cooking. Now we just take it off. So we're gonna rest the steak here for the same amount of time that we cooked it for. And that was 3 minutes on each side. So we're gonna rest it for 6 minutes.
All right, so now after each sear, we're gonna wipe out this pan to get out those little bits that we do not want to burn and add in a little bit of fresh oil.
Another really important thing is to make sure that before you put the oil in the pan, it's really hot. The pan, and one of the reasons that this becomes non-stick, is the molecules in the metal itself are actually expanding, and it'll absorb in between the crevices the oil.
So that oil is really setting into the crevices of the pan and creating a non-stick layer.
Exactly. And that's why these cast irons are so good for non-stick and create such a great texture and char on the steak, is because there's that even temperature. And this pan will hold its temperature so well. So ensuring you have a really hot pan, fresh oil, and a heavy pan, it's really, really helpful.
Now that it's ripping hot, let's get that steak back in.
Oh yeah. You know, in addition to pushing the steak away from yourself, I like to lift the pan to get the excess oil away from the meat. And that'll also help with splatterback so you don't burn yourself. We put the weight back on, and we're gonna repeat the same process again. We're gonna cook for 3 minutes on each side and then rest for 6.
Beautiful.
You got a really great char on here. This is all flavor. You're really gonna taste that sweetness and that roasted meat flavor. All right, we're good here. We're gonna pull it off the heat. Great, so we're gonna rest for another 6 minutes, and we're gonna get it back in this pan, and we'll probably do a pretty quick sear because we're almost there.
So we're at about 118, 120 degrees. We're testing it right when it came out of the pan. We let it sit here for a couple minutes. That carryover is gonna bring up the temperature inside the meat. So we really wanna test it again before we put it back in the pan, just to make sure it didn't go over. So let's rest it for 6 minutes, and we'll see where it's at. So let's get that steak back in there.
This is our final cooking step. So right away, I'm gonna add butter, thyme, and garlic. I don't put the thyme into the pan because it's so hot, it'll just burn the thyme right away. I take the butter and I tilt the pan, and I really just wanna melt it until it gets to a nice golden brown. I'm gonna lower the temperature of the pan as soon as the butter is melted to a medium-high heat.
Just so we don't burn the butter.
Just so we don't burn the butter, because we want to add that nice brown butter flavor to it, but I don't want to add a burnt butter flavor to it. So this is called basting, and I'm just pouring it over the steak. making sure that I'm not losing temperature. I always want that frying sound to happen. And you can just smell that thyme just lightly cooking. It's infusing with the butter and the steak. It's gonna make a really great flavor.
Smells amazing.
I'm gonna take the thyme and I'm gonna remove it.
Give it a little flip.
And we're gonna give it a little flip. Oh man, that looks perfect.
Wow.
I'm gonna put the thyme right back on top. I'm gonna get my spoon. And again, I'm gonna baste.
The smell of the thyme and the garlic and the butter is just incredible.
And you can see that the butter still isn't burnt. It's this beautiful golden hue. All right, Ross, I think our steak is done. And I'm gonna take it out with the thyme on it. I'm just gonna take this garlic, put it right on top, and just pour all of this over the top. All right, now that the pan is still hot, it's really important that it happens fast because we want to pull this fond out of the bottom of the pan.
Do it.
I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to put my shallots into the pan.
So we're basically using the shallots to deglaze the pan?
That's exactly what we're doing. Especially with these cast irons, if you deglaze with like red wine or anything acidic, it'll pull the seasoning off the pan. But if you're using a vegetable aromatic that has a high water content, fennel, onions, celery, your basic mirepoix, it'll cook the onions enough to start releasing their own liquid, and that liquid will deglaze the pan. You can see there's not a lot of moisture evaporation, but these onions are really softening up, and they're picking up this fond. See this nice brown color that's on them?
So just layer upon layer of building flavor.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a lot of home cooks and restaurants, is that at every step, I'm building flavor. We're gonna do something a little different. So now I've got my deglazed onions in my pan sauce, and I'm pouring it into my saucepan, and I've got these beautiful peaches here. You just add them right in, give it a little stir, and these are just gonna start making a little peach and shallot pan sauce for our steak.
I would have never thought to have used peaches in a pan sauce.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
So what are we looking for while we're cooking these peaches and these shallots?
The peaches themselves are gonna start pushing off their liquid and start breaking down. It's gonna make a really nice thick sauce, but it is important to watch it because it will burn easily because of the sugar content in the peaches. Got it. These peaches are gonna start breaking down pretty fast. Don't be afraid to test them with your spoon for their doneness. You want them to fall apart, but to retain some of their texture. So Ross, this would be a great time to add some extra flavor to this dish. And peaches and bourbon are a match made in heaven.
One of my favorites, Basil Hayden's. How much are we adding in here, Jesse?
I would say a good shot. Perfect. And now we're just gonna let it cook off. It's really important to taste it and make sure that that booze is all cooked off. We're almost there. You can taste it just a little bit on the back of your throat. It's gonna be a little bit astringent. When all of the booze is cooked off, it's gonna have a really nice round caramel flavor to it, and those peaches will be in the front of the palate. Wow. You can always skip using bourbon or alcohol in general if that, offends your moral sensibilities. And you can use something else, like red wine vinegar is a great thing to use. We're just looking for something with a really dense flavor and a little bit of acidity.
So last thing here, we're gonna knock in a little butter.
Yep, and just a pinch more salt. And that's just a beautiful sauce. It's got great texture. And I'm gonna finish it with just a little bit of lemon juice. Turn the heat off, and let's get this on a plate. The first thing I'm gonna do when I cut this steak is remove the bone. And there's sometimes a little bone right here because they usually cut it on a bandsaw. So I'm removing the bone, checking the perfect temperature. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna cut against the grain. And I'm doing nice, thin slices. A lot of this fat has been rendered into the meat itself, so you're not seeing a lot of excess fat that's pretty standard with a ribeye from a younger cow. I'm gonna take this here and go right on. Perfect. I've got our sauce here, and I'm gonna finish it with just a little bit of fresh basil And you can just smell that already. I'm gonna put it over the steak in this nice centered area. Little Maldon salt, another shot of whiskey, and let's eat. Those peaches and basil pair so perfectly. Wow.
I need a minute. The flavor of that steak is out of control. The char on the outside, the crispiness.
And you can really taste the thyme, which is so crazy. The brown butter, those like little finishing touches just brings a steak from good to great.
It's magical.
That's an excellent steak, Ross. And so easy. You just gotta take your time.
Wow. Thank you.